Good morning and welcome on the Sunrise Safari. My name is Brent and it's great to be back. I've got Andrew on camera and we have Nikki and Lou in final control and Jamie and Brian on the other vehicle. So amazing to be back, and how exciting that Kunyuma has been around. For those of you who might be new, Kunyuma is a young male leopard who happens to be my favorite. So very excited to go have a look, see if we can find him this morning. We're sitting above the drainage line where he was last seen with that kudu kill on the Sunset Safari. For those of you who knew, we are live, so you are sitting with me on a very cold morning here in the African bush. It's 9 degrees Celsius, 47 degrees Fahrenheit, and we're about to meander down into the drainage line to see if we're able to find Kunyuma again. We also are interactive, so you can send us questions about what we're seeing on safari, and you can do that by emailing us to questions@wildearth.tv or use the hashtag SafariLive on Twitter. So guys, let's get going and hopefully we can find some leopards. So we had a wonderful shot of the moon to start there, and it's actually blue moon this month, which means we get 2 full moons in 1 month, and it doesn't happen very often. So really awesome way to start my first safari back here at Juma Private Game Reserve. Unfortunately, there were a lot of hyena tracks that were coming down along this road, not very far from where Kunyuma had that carcass. So hopefully he maybe managed to hoist it during the night. Otherwise, I think he might have lost it. So we might have to do a little bit of tracking, but we're going to find out shortly. See, and if you're going to get that there, Andrew, you can see there's there all the hyena tracks heading directly towards where that carcass was. So let's hope he managed to pop it in a tree. It's amazing how much the bush has dried out, even in just the last 2 weeks that I've been away. And I'm very excited. I really do love the dry season. It's the only time I'll put up with cold, is to be able to be in the bush at this time of the year. With it being so dry, our visibility is a lot better. The grass isn't as thick. The tracks seem to jump out at you on the road or in the bush while you're tracking. So all really exciting for me. At the moment, I'm tracking James's vehicle tracks from yesterday. A little bit easier than tracking lions and leopards. Not good, not good. Let me just have a quick look here. It looks like the hyenas have managed to steal. We have a look over here. And you can see there's a drag mark. And the hyena tracks on top. So it's more than likely that the hyenas have stolen the whole carcass, or maybe just a portion of the carcass. We are going to go have a look at the last position. But you can see here, there's a very clear hyena track, and you can see it's been dragged that way. The reason we can tell it's been dragged that way, probably the easiest if we look at some of the dry grass here, it's been flattened down in that general direction. So looks like Kunyuma is going to make me work, but I don't mind that. But hopefully he's managed to maybe steal a piece of the carcass, which happens sometimes with these big carcasses when leopards kill very big animals, and he's managed to stash at least a bit of it. So you can actually smell stomach contents. Ah, there we go. And the hyenas have definitely made quite a lot of short work of this. So I think Kanuma's going to make it a little bit difficult for us to find him. I'm just going to show you what the morning newspaper is telling me. So we have a look here. You can see this darkened patch here. This looks like a bit of blood, and it looks like the hyenas might have even had a fight amongst themselves over what's left of the carcass. We come across here, the little kudu horns, and there's a jawbone, and possibly looks like a piece of, oh, very thin, possibly one of the starts of one of the ribs. Still fresh, you can see there's still blood in it, and I can actually still smell that sort of carcass smell, which is probably more the stomach content than anything else. I'm just going to have a quick meander around and see if I can see if there are any tracks, but I think possibly the best thing for us to do is going to go up onto the roads around here to check if he's moved out of the area. He could have been quite full, so he might have moved into the drainage line. So we're just going to do a quick sweep around this area. Lots of hyena tracks everywhere. And here's, I don't know if you can get that through there, Andrew.
Yeah.
Here's what I was smelling, some of the undigested grass from the inside of the kudu's stomach. I think this is exactly where the kill was. There's a nice little bit of kudu tail. That white, you see, when we see the kudu run away, they lift that tail. So there's the white at the base of the kudu's tail. Unfortunately, with a big carcass like that, with it being on the ground, it's very common for the hyenas to steal from a leopard. But I have had a quick look up in all the trees, and it doesn't look like young Kunuma has managed to steal a piece of the carcass to hoist. So we're going to have a quick look around here and see what else we can find. I do have a sneaky suspicion he's probably moved off. I'm just going to update the other game drive vehicles so they can start checking carefully around and no one all just rushes here to see if he's still here. The station's Kunuma is no longer on site. The carcass has been stolen by hyenas. I'm going to be checking central for tracks. Scott, if you guys are going down Twin Dams, just please have a look out for tracks that side. So there we go, we can have a quick look here. So what it looks like is that's where the carcass was. You can see from the stomach content, you can actually see off to the right slightly, Andrew, where Kunuma has buried some of that stomach content to try hide the smell of this carcass. And then it looks like the hyenas have then found him here. I'm sure with that very strong wind last night, they would have smelt it. And then they've dragged, and it looks like the hyenas, or possibly even Kunuma, because we have seen him fight with hyenas before. And this whole damp area that we first noticed there is where they would have had a fight, either hyenas amongst themselves fighting over the carcass, or Kunuma trying to steal some of it back. So it's amazing how the ground can actually tell you a story, even though we weren't here to witness what happened. So while we try figure out what's happened and which way Kunuma's gone this morning, we can go across to Jamie, who's with the thieving culprits from this whole scene, and we'll see you a little bit later.
Hello, good morning everyone, and welcome to the Sunrise Safari. For those of you who don't know, my name is Jamie, and I have Brian on camera with me this morning. So, just as I was passing the hyena den, I heard that Kunuma had lost his kill and was no longer there. And as I was driving along the road, there was a huge drag mark leading straight to the den. And there are some very full, satisfied looking hyenas out and about. So I think we have almost definitely found the culprits. And they're looking, the matriarch in particular, the older female that's on the left, has got a very, very full belly. There's not much sign of what's left of the kudu. I haven't seen it yet. They didn't drag it all the way up until the den site, which is fairly normal for hyena. They might drag it sort of to the outskirts and feed on it there. And there we can see how dominant that little cub behaves. I have seen her sniffing the genitals of this younger female, showing a little bit of dominance, and she has been chewing on her as well. And the minute this older female fights back, the matriarch and the mother of this little cub comes running forward, just to remind her that the cub is the higher ranking one. So I think we definitely have our answer as to what happened to poor Kunuma's kudu. But we did suspect that was going to happen. So quite a large kill from what I heard about it. And he hadn't hoisted it into a tree. And we're probably about maybe 2 kilometers from where Kunuma was with that kudu carcass. So it's amazing to think these guys have dragged it all the way here sometime last night or early this morning. And this matriarch is doing very, very well. This is the second time in 2 days I've seen her with an enormously distended belly. We do have another individual coming in from my left, and I can hear more off into the bush. They're going to come running through. And always interesting to watch the interactions between the various hyenas. So we'll see which one this one is. Hello, good morning. Definitely one of my favorite animals. I've got one right at the front of my car, and she is definitely thinking about having a chew. Excuse me. Hey. It's so close now that I can't actually see it. Hey. Hey. No. Please don't chew my car. That's very rude. Yeah, thank you. Here you go. Also looking fairly full and well fed. Not too sure which individual this is. And I did very briefly see some hyenas running around off to my left. And I think that's where the older cubs that live around this den are. They're getting much bolder and much braver and moving out and about. So guys, just to let you know my plans for this morning, I was slightly distracted by the drag mark and all of this awesome activity here at the den, but I know that if you were watching the sunset safari yesterday, you would be very interested to know what is happening with Tingana and the Anderson male. So for those of you who might have missed it, they were right up on the western boundary of Arathusa, a couple of meters from each other. And if you're joining us for the first time, Tingana and the Anderson male are two very, very big dominant male leopards. And they happened to meet each other sometime yesterday morning and spent most of the day growling and posturing at each other. As far as I know, it hasn't come to physical blows yet, and actually in territorial disputes, unless it is very, very fierce, they probably won't. So in terms of the dynamics here, we had the one on the left who's playing with the cub at the moment and playing very, very gently. And then we've got the newbie who came in, and I think it's probably a sub-adult, part of this clan who's now moving about on her own. And she actually came into anal paste, and the others then joined in, and it sort of stimulated that action from all of them. And now we've got a greeting between the one that we think is the matriarch and her cub, and then this other female who came in a little bit just a couple of seconds ago. And I think the one that is currently sniffing the matriarch is the mother of the twins, and you can actually hear the matriarch vocalizing. So these two hyena that are currently playing with the cub, they're not showing any signs of aggression, and they would be very foolish to do so, because Mom is right there and she's bigger than both of them, and she is higher ranking. But they are playing very gently, and if they get too rough and the cub starts to squeak, I'm certain that Mom will be up in a second to put them back in their place. But that is just play and bonding with that little cub. It's amazing to watch how gentle they are. And there's always a possibility with that female who came in and who's still playing with that cub. There is a possibility that she is one of the cub's older sisters. It's always difficult to tell in hyena clans because they can be made up of several unrelated family lines, usually just two sets of matrial lineal lines, but can be up to 3 or 4. And the cub is definitely full of energy this morning. So the cub is being highly, highly entertaining this morning and just bouncing around. And it's probably in high spirits because when that kill was brought to this den, there was probably a lot of the cub in such an excitable mood. And there you can see as it climbs on top of Mom how incredibly enormous her belly is right now. And whoopsie, underground. And Lindsay would like to know when these hyenas would need to eat again. They have very, very rapid digestive systems, so they will digest, probably they'll start to look normal again almost in 2 days or so. But that's not to say that they won't feed in between that. Yesterday morning when I was at this den site, the older female, the matriarch, was looking absolutely enormous, and she still managed to consume most of that kudu with the rest of the clan. So they are opportunists. You never know when your next meal is coming from, so you don't want to turn down food unnecessarily. But Lindsay, good morning. Thank you for your question. I hope that helps in terms of feeding behavior. They will start to look hungry again in the next sort of 3 to 4 days. We've got 2 individuals approaching off to my left. They will be coming in front of us soon. We've got 3 individuals coming up. I'm not sure if the third is going to come through. There we can see these 2 coming in. It's actually quite hard to keep track now because they're coming and going. One individual will come in and then leave again, but you can see how incredibly tubby they're all looking. They've definitely, it's almost a certainty that this is from Tingana's kudu kill, because that's a lot of food that's been consumed. Oh, sorry, Kunyuma's kill. Now listen, please don't chew my car. Again. We've been over this. We have been over this. At an active den site like this, you actually start needing eyes in the back of your head to keep up with everything that's going on. I'm just going to stand up for 1 minute just to see what this one's doing. I don't hear any chewing sounds. Okay, now I've got 2. Hey, excuse me. No. Hey. No. Don't do that. No, you too. Yeah, I just have to start my vehicle because this one of them is not getting the message. Yeah, that's what I thought. Naughty, naughty. I do love spotted hyena. They are always up to no good. It's very entertaining. So, lots of excitement happening there. I've counted at least 7 or 8 adult hyenas that are moving through now, including those basically sub-adults that were trying to sniff the car. So there's a lot of the clan members here at the moment. And what's happening here is that one of them overstepped the boundary with the matriarch on the other side of the den, and the higher ranking females are now putting it in its place. I can't tell if it was a male or a female. Probably a younger, lower ranking female that just got a little bit too friendly and too forward with the little cub, who has since ducked into the den. But that whole interaction was to do with rank. And I strongly suspect, just because all of the hyenas that have come through from that side, and the older cubs are also all missing from the den, I strongly suspect that the remains of the kudu are off into that block where they've all just run into. So I think what we should do, I'm just going to give it a couple of seconds to see if they're going to come back towards us. There's still a lot of running around going on, so I might try and follow with them. But I'm actually going to try and drive in there and just see what's happening, because there's still a lot of noise and activity. Oh, no, here we go. There's a lot coming back. Lots and lots of excitement, which is very common around a spotted hyena den, especially when there's been a big kill. So this is the little one. I think this is the little one that was being chased. It got a bit too forward. Hello. Are you back? Did you get into trouble? You're about to get into trouble again if you chew my car. No, not this morning. Definitely a bit more subdued. And here comes the female that we consider the matriarch. Hello. And you can see she's very, very old. She's got her tail up in a show of dominance. She's actually got a fresh wound on her shoulder, which could have been from any kind of collision with Kunuma, possibly. Sorry. There you can see on her shoulder there's a little bit of blood. So it is supposition that they stole this kudu, but I do strongly suspect that that's what's been going on. They've stolen Kunuma's kill. Sure. So she's returning to her den and her cub, having decidedly put the other hyenas in their place. And we've got some contact calls as well happening. Awesome stuff. So the contact calls seem to have subsided, and so has most of the activity off to my left. So I do just want to shift around, see if we can get a view of the matriarch, because she is going to go and fetch her cub in a moment and get her out of the den again. But before I do, we've just been talking about Kunuma and the fact that the hyenas have probably stolen his kudu kill. And we have a question from Dave, who would like to know if hyenas are scavengers in the way that the Lion King made them out to be. Good morning, Dave. Welcome to the Sunrise Safari. And spotted hyenas are one of my favorite animals, and it's always a bit sad for me that they've got this very negative reputation as just being thieves of other animals' hard work. And the truth is, yes, they do scavenge, and especially if a leopard doesn't put that kill up in a tree, for a large clan like this, it's very, very easy to go and scare him away and go and collect it for themselves. But they are very, very efficient hunters. They probably have a higher efficiency rate than lions do in terms of the number of kills that they attempt and their successful attempts. So very, very efficient. They are more than capable of providing for themselves, and they often do. I've seen hyenas kill more regularly in the area I used to work than I did see them scavenge kills. So they are very efficient hunters, more than capable of looking after themselves. And the degree to which they scavenge depends on the lion population, the leopard, the other predator population, and how easy it is for them to access food. So a bit more complex than the Lion King made it out to be. Unfortunately, great entertainment for kids, but not a true reflection on the complexities and how interesting spotted and incredibly talented hunters spotted hyenas can be. And there's still... I have at least seen one of the older cubs moving around in there. There's still quite a lot of activity, but this is a very, very thick block. and I don't want to go crashing off into it, especially around an active den site. It's just really bad manners. But I'm sure that kudu kill is off somewhere in there. I'm just going to let the other people know that the hyena den is active, if you'll bear with me for one moment. And I can grab a chance to get onto the radio. Morning stations, Misikaya is very, very active. There's about 8 adults and lots of mapimpans running around. That's affirmative, you're more than welcome. Just keeping up some good relations with the neighbors, letting them know what's happening. And although it is very thick in there, you can see there's lots and lots of hyenas moving around. And lots of vocalizations happening as well. And this kind of level of excitement, as I mentioned before, is very common when there has been a fresh kill made, or at least a fresh carcass scavenged in this case. Okay, I just want to sit for another 2 seconds just to see what's happening there. I just want to reposition to see, now that the activity is all calmed down over there, I just want to move around and just see what's happening with the matriarch. So here we have the enormous female with the very, very distended belly, and the one that we think is the matriarch. And earlier on she was lying down, and while the other hyenas were wandering around, and Miss Jin would like to know why she didn't get up, and I think that's because she didn't feel that she had to. She's not injured in any way, apart from a little bit of blood on her shoulder, but nothing serious. But she is just unbelievably full, and she is very high-ranking, so she didn't feel the need to stand on ceremony, as it were. She was just This is the female that James said smelt very, very bad. I don't have quite as sensitive a sense of smell as James. I haven't caught a whiff of her yet. But it is, hyenas feeding on old carcasses could well be. I know he described it not just as smelling bad, but being very, very stinky. But I can't smell her at the moment, and she came right up to the car a little bit earlier. Did just hear her rumble a little bit. Oh, hello. There's her little cub. But something has caught her attention. And as the matriarch, you can actually see that she's got a stomach that is fuller than all of the others, and that's because she would have had the first access and the best access to the meat from that kill. Just trying to work out what she's so focused on. So a very, very interesting morning here at the hyena den. And as she moves off into the distance, I think that her cub is going to stay hidden in the den. I'm just listening to what's happening around us. Not sure what made that noise that I just heard. Sounded like an alarm call. It might have been some of the antelope in the area responding to the hyenas running around. And they do spend a lot of time running around. When you compare spotted hyenas to something like lions, who spend so much time sleeping, they have the most incredible endurance, and that is actually their hunting strategy, which is, as Jim said, they have this great endurance and they'll chase down prey. And now Jim would like to know how far will they range from this den site in order to hunt. And the answer to that is they can range very, very far, well over, depending on the distribution and the clan territory of the hyenas, they can range up to easily 10 kilometers or more, which is about 20, no wait, I can't convert kilometers into miles, I'm afraid. You'll have to work on that yourself. But they can go very far. For the females with the younger cubs, they might not go as far, although Scott did see this matriarch about 6 kilometers away, coming from even further into Buffelshoek and across down the one morning. And she is quite easily identifiable because she has that enormous scar on her back. So they can range far, but for the sub-adults, the young nomadic males who move through, that distance is almost unlimited because they don't need to pop back to the den every day or every second day. So they can go for kilometers at a time, and they generally, you don't see them walking that much. When they're on the move, they head off at a very fast-paced trot. So incredible animals, very much adapted to covering great distances. And if you look at it, makes sense in terms of being able to move and be nomadic, so that they can outcompete, or not outcompete, but compete with lions, who are group hunters, very, very efficient, very dominant, as one of the sort of keystone species of this area. So being able to move large distances means that you can stay out of their way, move around, follow them around, and it just gives you a greater flexibility and adaptability to the area you're in. And for an area like this, it's got a very, very dense population, so quite a lot of hyenas, and that's because there's enough food and resources for them. If you look at somewhere like Namibia, Botswana, some of the more deserty areas, although all the more open areas, the population is much, much sparser, and those hyenas will move incredible distances in a night. So it very much depends on the area they're in and how far they have to go for food. Obviously, the closer you can be, the better. However, it seems to have all quietened down. I am going to loop around and just see if we can get a visual of them from the other side of this block. I've had a look at this block and I don't actually want to go driving through it right next to a den site, just in terms of the noise impact and all of that. So I want to loop around and just see if I can get any better visual of the rest of the hyenas. I just want to chat to the guide who's coming in now as I exit. Sorry guys, bear with me one moment. Morning. They have literally like 2 seconds before you came in, they've all run off into that block. But they've got I think they had Kunyuma's kudu. Yeah, you see the drag marks from there. Yeah, so there are still, there's quite a few of them still off in there. I'm going to loop around and see. But the matriarch, just as you were driving in, went off. So the cub's in the den now. I think the carcass is in there. I didn't see them with it, but I think it's in there. They've been coming and going from there. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. Cool. Okay, I'm just going to let him move out. And there's absolutely no sign of this carcass, although there is a drag mark. And Rena and A Handy would like to know if they ate all of it. And I know that Brent found a jawbone and some of the horns, and I think they have consumed almost all of it. Judging by the fact that almost all of them here have those full bellies, I think that there's a strong possibility they've consumed almost everything. If there is anything left, it will be a couple of scraps, maybe some of the bigger bones that they haven't been able to get into yet. But I think pretty much everything has been devoured. And there's lots of hyenas. As I said, I counted somewhere in the region of 8 fairly adult-looking ones. There's 3 older cubs who will come and feed and chew on the scraps. So there's lots of hyenas moving around. And we actually had some questions yesterday about the numbers in this clan. And of course it's impossible to tell, but now we know at minimum there are 8 adults and 4 cubs. So there's a minimum of 12 hyenas in this clan. And probably some males that are coming and going. Some resident males. So interesting. We've learned a great deal from this morning in terms of the clan dynamics. And as I drive out, we'll just see what we can find. And we saw how amazingly full those bellies are and the fact that that whole carcass is gone. And as I mentioned before, when I was here yesterday morning, that matriarch was looking, that big female was looking very full already. And Pretty Nightmare would like to know if hyenas will carry on eating, even if they are full. And the answer to that is yes, most definitely they will. They will consume as much as possible in the space and time that they have, which is common of all of the predators. So you'll see that with the lions. I'm sure you guys have seen how engorged they can look. They've got an amazing ability to distend their stomachs and consume far more than you would think that they need. And that of course makes sense because you don't know where your next meal is coming from out here. So you can't stop when you're full. You stop when there's nothing left to eat, because there's always a chance that something's going to come along and take it from you. So you eat as much as you can, as fast as you can. We saw with the Nkahuma Pride that over the buffalo kills with the last 2 weeks, how much time they spent there just constantly consuming and looking very, very big. And then again, you see the incredible effects of the rapid digestive system. So within 2 or 3 days, they were looking like normal lions again, and not like they consumed a beach ball. Dory has got a brilliant question for me. Good morning, Dory. Welcome to the Sunrise Safari. A little bit earlier, I mentioned when that one female came into that cub, and I said it could be the older sibling of that cub. And now, as many of the regular viewers will know, the ranking system in spotted hyena is inherited. So let me just let this other guy move a bit further ahead of us. So they inherit their mother's social status. So the matriarch's daughters will be some of the higher ranking ones. The difference comes in when new cubs are born and they are young, then they have the matriarch's high status, and that's because they're cubs. They need to be looked after the best. So they are higher ranking than their older sisters during the time that they are cubs. And then once they start to reach independence and they've been weaned, then they start to have to sort of compete for rank with the other older daughters. So while they're a cub, they have their mother's protection and they have their mother's rank. Once they reach maturity, then they will start to slot into the hierarchy system within the matriarch's daughters. So great question, very perceptive, and that is my answer to that. I will say that there are no rules out in the wild, so this is the behavior we've observed, but you also get situations where, especially in big clans, there might even be a coup, and the daughter overtakes the matriarch, one of her older, stronger daughters, especially when she starts to get old, or even a complete overthrow of that matriarch's sort of daughter line, family line, and a new lower ranking sort of family of hyenas will actually outcompete and become more dominant. So there's no rules, and it is possible, and it's probably impossible to predict when that's going to happen. So it seems as though the other guy just came out of here, but there's not much happening on this side. They might have moved off, which is why the matriarch was looking off in that direction. I'm not seeing any activity. Just having a look off to my right here, there's lots of tracks wandering around. There we can hear lots of vocalizations. I would like to get in there quickly, just to see what's happening. So as I make my way into this, there was a question about what would happen to a hyena that inflicted serious injury to the matriarch's cub, and that question comes from Deb. Good morning, welcome to the Sunrise Safari. And the answer to that is it would be highly unlikely, but I'm not entirely sure what would happen to that hyena. To make sure, because hyenas do tend to move around, I want to make sure I put myself in the right position for this action. One individual, but right in the thick bush ahead of me, just moving through. And I think their movements, because they are moving fairly rapidly around and about. But to get back to the question I was answering about what would happen to a female who did serious injury to the matriarch's cub, if the matriarch was present when that was happening, there's a good chance that that female would be in serious trouble. So the matriarch would be very, very aggressive towards that female, and actually it probably wouldn't have a chance to injure that cub if the mother was present. If the mother was absent, and it does happen, there are documented cases of hyenas killing the cubs of another mother, so that it does happen occasionally. I can't remember the specific term for it, but it's common for baby hyenas to be killed by their aunts, not just by their siblings, as is commonly talked about in hyena literature. So it does happen, and in that case, if the matriarch was gone, I don't think there would be too many serious consequences from that. I'm not too sure though. I'm just sort of going off general animal behavior. If she was gone, if she didn't know exactly what had happened to her cub, she would probably then just come into estrus again and mate again. I don't think there'd be consequences for a female that did the cub serious damage. But I could stand corrected. I'm not too sure about that. But it does seem as though these hyenas are off right in this thick block here, and I think we are going to struggle to relocate them. They are running around a lot, but you can see how incredibly thick it is in there, and they have all gone quiet. So I do just want to sit and listen for a couple of moments just to hear what's going on. And this is one of the things that makes learning about hyena behavior so difficult. You know, the times for our regular viewers, the times that we spend with lions and leopards, when we find them on a kill or when we follow them around, we do get to spend a lot of time with them out and about. Whereas with hyenas, they're incredibly difficult to follow. Unless they're at the den site, there's just sort of chaos, and they spread out and they move very, very fast. So we got to see some amazing stuff this morning from these thieving hyenas who took Kunyuma's meal. And while we're talking about Kunyuma, I'm sure you're wondering what Brent has been up to in terms of tracking. So I'm going to send you back across to him, and I'm going to make my way to Arathusa. I will see you guys all in just a few moments.
Welcome back, everyone. I heard you've been having an absolutely fantastic time with Jamie at the hyena den. Sounds like lots and lots of action there. So really happy you've been there. My news isn't so good. We've managed to track this leopard for probably now about 3 or 4 kilometers. We're now sitting on our eastern boundary, and just to show you that I'm not fibbing, he has decided to depart again, and he's now crossed off to the east. And we can see his tracks over here. And he's continued off into Torchwood. Hopefully less hyenas if he does catch something that side. But fingers crossed that he's going to come back at some point in the near future. I would really like to see this young male again before he disperses completely. But anyway, we've just got a report that Mvula was seen to the south of us, and they had tracks heading north towards the Twin Dams area. So we're going to make our way down there and see if we can find any tracks. And obviously we'll be looking for anything else we might stumble on along the way. Unfortunately, that's just the way it happens sometimes. Sometimes leopard tracks are coming into our area, sometimes they're going out. But utilizing these big boundaries is often really, really important, because it is a sort of veritable highway. Certain of these areas, it's very strange that the leopards will use certain roads very, very often. That crossing point being one of them. But never fear, I'm sure there's lots else out there for us to see. I'm just very, very thankful the wind isn't howling like it was yesterday. Although, in that incredibly strong howling wind, you guys saw 4 different leopards last night. Isn't that incredible? Well, I know quite a few of you have been wondering where I disappeared to and what I've been up to. Sherry from Los Angeles was wondering, where have I been? What have I been up to? She heard I went on a bushman's holiday to Zambia. Well, Sherry, that is correct. I went actually to visit one of my oldest friends who I used to live with a long time ago in Cape Town, and he's from Zambia. So I went way up north to Zambia, where I was staying was about 20 kilometers from the Congo border, the Democratic Republic of Congo. So a very, very interesting area, a lot of water. So quite opposite in terms of the bush to where we are here. It is Brachystegia or Miombo woodland. So very, very good for birds and certain special species of antelope, but not the best for lots of other animals. The reason for that is that Miombo woodland, even though it is a very wet woodland, it's actually one of the largest. Miombo woodland covers one of the largest sort of dry forests, so not sort of rainforests, in the world. It extends from southern Zimbabwe all the way through the majority of Zambia, Malawi, northern Mozambique, into southern Tanzania, southern Uganda, and into large parts of the southern sections of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Lots of incredible bird species in that area, and things like black lechwe, but those are endemic to Zambia and only occur in the area around the Benguela swamps. So I was just to the west of there, but I did make a trip into that area, and I did manage to see some black lechwe. They were quite far away in a papyrus swamp, so it's very difficult to get good photos, but I got a few. Basically, and I did a lot of bird watching while I was there. Saw some really nice ones. One new bird species for me, which is a Margaret's Bassus, which is a little flycatcher. Unfortunately, I forgot my bird book today, but I will make sure I have it this evening so we can have a look what a Margaret's Bassus looks like. So very similar to the chin spot Bassus, which we see here. Obviously lacks the chin spot and is endemic to northern Zambia and southern Congo in that Miombo woodland. So Ross's Tarako, Scallo's Tarako, also Ross's spreads a bit further, but Scallo's is a little bit more endemic to that area. But in general, a really, really good holiday. I spent a lot of time napping as well, but it was very good to be in the Miombo woodlands, which I haven't been in for a few years. Hello. And strangely enough, speaking of Miombo woodlands, I saw a waterbuck while I was there, but the waterbuck that is quite different from the ones that are just to the left of us at the moment. These are a common waterbuck, and they have that very distinct, there we go, ring around their bottom. That makes it look like they've sat on a freshly painted toilet seat. Now the Dafasa waterbuck, which I was looking at in Zambia, lacks that ring. It's got a completely white bottom. So it also acts as a following mechanism, but not as distinct as that. Other than that, they look very, very similar to these waterbucks, just slightly smaller. but just as fluffy. They also, like our common waterbuck we get here, they have that very distinct smell that you can actually smell them. It smells sort of like a wet dog crossed with a moldy cupboard. Not so much of a wet dog, I'm just trying to think now, but more of sort of a moldy cupboard smell, and that's from that gland on their neck that secretes that oily substance that gives them a slight waterproofing over their body. Oh, crested francolin in the foreground as well. And there's a new. If we go a little bit forward. And he's the lone wildebeest bull who's hanging out with the waterbuck. You're one of the territorial bulls. He's waiting for the ladies to move into his area. So you heard me call him a gnu or gnu, but we're also known as a wildebeest. This is a blue wildebeest. So all calm on Cheetah Cutline. I think we're going to meander on, try get down to the Twin Dams area, see if there are any tracks. So speaking about Miombo specials and antelope, Jim was wondering why we don't see any sable. Are they not indigenous to this area? Jim, they are indigenous to this area. We are right at sort of the southern verge of their range. And in my reading and stuff about sable in this area, they are sable are very specific feeders. And almost 70 to 80% of their diet in this area is made up of one species of Eragrostis, or love grass, Eragrostis cavella, which only occurs in certain areas. It is around, but where it occurs in long stands. Sable, unlike most antelope, and this is a sable and roan, which are both very much more Miombo specials and species, or Brachystegia species. That's their preferred habitat, as opposed to what we hear in broadleafed woodland, or mostly made up of combretums. So sable prefer longer grass, and what happens is that we have a lot of bulk grazers in this area, big herds of buffalo and wildebeest, zebra, and rhinos and things like that, which are bulk grazers, which keep the grass very short. As you can see here on this open area, this has been grazed nice and short. So sable antelope prefer a much longer grass to eat, and very species specific in the Kruger area. But there are sable. I actually saw one just before I went on leave in the Manyeleti, so not very far from the Sabi Sands. And I have heard they have seen them in Buffalo's Hook, but very seldom, sort of once or twice a year. But one of the reasons a lot of the sable antelope have disappeared from this area and the greater Kruger area, and their populations are quite low here, is that the Kruger and a lot of the private reserves, we know a lot more now than we used to. So basically they built a lot of water holes all over the place into areas that were predominantly dry. Sable are a lot less where the sables can go a couple of days without drinking. If there's water available, they will take advantage of it. So apart from the fact that water was put into these areas that were predominantly dry, would have only had water during the wet season, so therefore a lot more grass. The buffalo and zebra and wildebeest would have moved through these areas, but during the dry season there would have been far more cemented to around the main rivers and water seeps and things like that. And so what happened is basically the sable got out-competed. Two reasons as well, also the fact that having permanent water allowed things like especially spotted hyena to become far more permanently based in an area that would have been very dry and they would have avoided during the dry season. And so that obviously sable had quite a lot more predation. They are actually ferocious fighters and have been recorded killing lions in defense of themselves and their young. But that was one of the main reasons that they were sort of expatriated out of the area. But the main reason is they were out-competed. So all the grass and stuff was kept very short. Buffalo would have stayed in that area because there was now permanent water, and so would have zebra and things like that. And so basically their food source was removed. So they were pushed into further and further areas along the eastern boundary of Kruger in the Lubombo Mountains. There is still quite a nice healthy population of sable. They are seen in the Manuleti a little bit more frequently. The soil types are a little bit different in the Manuleti, and there's a lot less water than in the Sabi Sands. But they are around, and there is always a possibility we might see one. But quite interesting now, so a lot of those water holes were built during the 50s and 60s, and now we've managed to learn that this probably wasn't the best idea, but in the Kruger's defense, no one really knew better back then. There wasn't the information that's available today. So what they've done is they've actually started blowing up and destroying those water holes to try and rectify that and try to turn the system back to as natural as possible. So quite interesting how in 50 years or so, the whole ideals on management and conservation have completely changed. And if we go back another 50 years before that, lion, wild dog, leopard, cheetah, hyena were all shot on sight by the Kruger Rangers to protect the impala and the zebra. So it's amazing in a relatively short time how our perceived ideas of what we should protect in conservation have completely changed. But very, very interesting. And it is, I think, an absolutely amazing thing that a huge sort of state-run thing like the Kruger National Park can look back and say, well, we made a mistake, so now we're going to try our best to rectify this mistake. So interesting times ahead, and I will keep an eye on that and keep you guys updated about what's going on there. So we're coming down towards Twin Dams now, so I'm going to start checking for tracks really carefully. It is absolutely awesome to be back. Feel like I missed out on some great stuff while I was away, but I'm glad that you guys had James, Jamie and Scott to show you all the wonderful things that are out here. There we go. There's an elephant. We're way up ahead of the road, so he's just disappearing. There's a grey bottom off to the right. You see him there?
I can't see him.
Okay, go up, Andrew. You see where there's that green gori bush there on the right?
Yeah.
There, that dark patch to the right of it's an elephant. See the movement there? Yep. So we're going to head off towards those elephants. We'll check for leopard tracks as we go through there. So we've just unfortunately followed the tracks of Kunyuma, possibly Kunyuma, across our eastern boundary, and Doug was wondering whether they have their own safaris. They do, Doug. Quite a lot of these properties will have commercial lodges on them. Actually, a matter of fact, that property that Kunyuma crossed into doesn't. It is a privately owned property. Although there's traverse, certain commercial lodges are allowed to drive on it. But that one itself is actually a privately owned property with no commercial lodges operating on it. There is a lodge there, and that is for the landowners. But the Juma game drive vehicles are allowed to drive on that property, as the vehicles, the landowners from there are allowed to drive on Juma. So it doesn't look like Mvula's made it all the way this far yet. There's no tracks crossing. Just trying to try and catch up with that Ellie quickly. Oh. First things first. Unfortunately, sometimes on these main access roads, I don't think anyone does it on purpose, but rubbish can blow out every now and then, so every time you see it, the best way to keep on top of it is to stop and pick it up. We had a really long distance view of that Ellie. Would have been, oh, we'll see, there's tracks crossing the road as well. I'm not sure whether it was a he or a she. It was quite a long way away. There's the green bush. Okay. Ellie's crossed here. Yeah, the tracks. Dup, 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 dup. It looks like it might just be a single bull. I'm just going to loop around here, disappear into that green thicket there. There's tracks of more Ellies around. It's amazing an animal that huge can disappear so quickly. Quite often when you do have a long distance visual of an elephant like that and you lose sight of them, the best thing to do is switch off and listen. So we're just going to sneak around this next corner. There we go. Oh, Andrew's found him in the road. As I was about to say, we need to sneak off and listen. Good spotting, Andrew, and it does. Oh, looks like a very nice young bull we've got here. Two. Let's just try and get into. Looks like they might be heading towards a treehouse dam. Here we go. So he's a bit older than I initially thought. The one in front's a bit younger. I'd probably say he's. Oh, it sounds like there's more elephants off to the right. And it looks like he's in must. Just from, if you look on his back legs, you can see it's quite wet. I can't smell anything, but the wind isn't in my favor now. If he is in must, there's quite possibly a breeding herd quite close by that he's been following. Might just be starting or ending as well. Hello, big boy. Oh, there's another elephant bull around. I can hear him moving, but it does sound like there could be a breeding herd off to the right. Sorry, Craig, could you go again with that message? Okay, copy, thanks. There's a Shambhav and Dove on Weaver's Nest, 100 meters from the Gary Main Junction. Copy, thanks. Sorry guys, just on the radio for a second, finding out this. What's going on, and there's apparently small leopard tracks around quite close to where we are now. That's affirmative, from Central straight east across Cheetah Cut Line. Jamie coming. So it's really important to communicate with the other vehicles, just to let everyone know what's going on. But so nice big Ellie bull. Not the biggest we've seen, but still fair size. I'd probably guess he's close to 30. When he looks at it, and it looks like might be towards the end of his must cycle, or maybe very early in his must cycle. You can see there's quite a lot of secretion from the temporal glands on the side of his head, and that is one of the signs. It can also be from stress and lack of water and stuff, but the fact that he's also secreting around his penile sheath and there's wet on the inside of his back legs would probably mean either towards the end or possibly the beginning of the must cycle. So I've only seen elephant bulls so far, but I can hear quite a lot of other elephants around. But we do see breeding herds quite a lot more than we do see these bulls, so quite nice to spend some time with a big bull. And see very nice even tusks. Probably going to become a very nice tusker in his later years. Only a slight break on the right hand tusk off the tip there. They're still quite narrow, they haven't really started thickening yet. And that could just be that he doesn't have as thick tusks. Some elephants have much shorter but really big round thick tusks. He seems to have slightly longer and not as thick tusks, but they could thicken out quite a bit more than that as he develops. Busy destroying a red thorn, or an Acacia gerardi. It's quite common. You will not notice very many. I don't think I've ever seen a really big red thorn here. They are pruned and kept quite nice and short by the ellies. Here's another one just to the left of him that is. Quite often you have very large sort of stumps but very small trees, and that's because the ellies are big fans of them and they will prune and keep them nice and short. And we can see just off to the left, in tow, the drongos taking any opportunity to grab any insects that are disturbed by the eddy while he's feeding. So looking to try probably rip some bark off after that cambium layer. So, oh, there we go. How is that for absolute power? I mean, he took that. That's probably 10 to 15 centimeters in diameter, and he just plucked it like it was a blade of grass. And there you can see he's actually got the cambium layer. So he has taken the barks on the outside, and he's gone straight for that nutrient-rich layer that takes the nutrients from the roots through to the rest of the tree. So, guys, someone's just calling me on the radio. I'll be back with. Yeah, Ali. Sorry. make your way. I'm the only station here. I'm with 3 bulls on the road. It sounds like the rest are to the east of the road. Copy. Just let you know one of the bulls is in must. So we can actually see now that he's standing to the side of us. He is probably definitely in must. We're just not smelling it because the wind's not in the right direction. But I can see dripping from his penile sheath. And it's amazing. They will actually lose liters of liquid when they are in must from that dripping. Copy. Hey, firm Scott. Just with the Columbia and Love, and then I'll go see if I can follow up in that area. So, a lot of people are very nervous around elephants, and especially around sort of must bulls like this. They can be slightly more temperamental than when they are not in must. But again, it's all about watching their behavior and reading what they're going to do. And with most animals, whether it be lions, elephants, leopards, even impala, by watching their body language, you can predict what they're going to do, and whether it's safe or wise to approach them a bit more close. And I think what happens is a lot of people think they get charged or chased by elephants, and they often misread the behavior. And one of the other important things that if you do get yourself, and sometimes it happens, you come around the corner into a herd of elephants and they're not relaxed, into one of those slightly more sticky situations. A lot of people will suddenly jam the car into reverse, rev, make lots of noise, try to get out of there fast. And like with all animals, movement is something to chase. So although it seems counterintuitive, often the best thing is to just switch off and keep still and keep quiet. So you're not presenting a moving target. Obviously, sometimes if you are in a very bad situation, or you do need to just get out of there. But that is very, very seldom. Probably one time in 100 where you actually need to do that. Most of the time, if you stay calm and keep calm, the animals will calm down as well. The wonderful long eyelashes. So it's quite a nice example in this area where we are at the moment. Quite often in the old days, a lot of people used to refer to elephant feeding as elephant damage. And that's not true. And Simone is tweeting us on the Sunrise Safari, is mentioning, do I think elephants in the Greater Kruger are causing mass damage? As you can see just off behind him, there's a young knob thorn that's been pushed down by an elephant. And you can see he's taken this red thorn apart. And there's quite a lot of trees that have been pushed and moved by the ellies in this area. And Simone says, well, are they just thinning out the bush? Or are they causing massive damage? So I personally don't think it's damage at all, Simone. I think a lot of things have changed, and if we look at some of the older sort of aerial photographs from the 50s, the old black and white ones and stuff, vast areas of the low fault was much more open than it is now, and obviously the elephant populations, and if we go back 100 or 150 years, were probably even much bigger than they are today. And I think elephants are very important. They're keystone species, and they do often change their environment. They're one of the few animals that do, and in doing so, they do open it up, and open areas that are not the thick sort of woodland are much better for the majority of species. And it's obviously this very fine balance that nature has managed to keep in check for millions of years, that there's some species that will suffer by a large elephant population, other species that will benefit. But in average, I think the elephants are actually slowly getting back to the population they should be at. And we've got a very healthy elephant population in the greater Kruger area, and they're also getting the bush back to where it should be. It should be a lot more open, in theory, because remember, a lot of vast areas of even the Sabi Sands 30 years ago was fenced out of the greater Kruger, and there wasn't an open elephant population that came in and out. So I think the Ellies are doing what they're designed to do, and they will change environments, and that will change depending on droughts and wet cycles and stuff like that. So they might focus a lot more in one area during a dry cycle and then more on another area during a wet cycle. So there will be balance and there will be constant change. And that is the only constant in the history of the earth, is change. And the Kruger used to cull elephants as well, but that was a very controversial subject, and they did stop culling quite a few years ago. But if you look at areas like northern Botswana, where there's been no culling and whatnot, the elephant population is massive there, but it fluctuates, and a big drought could knock 20 to 30% off a population. So nature sorts itself out. But a very interesting question. Thanks very much for that, Simone. So those of you who might have logged in a little bit late, or you knew, welcome on a live safari. We're here at the moment on Juma Private Game Reserve in the Sabi Sands, and we're sitting with a musk elephant bull. It sounds like there's a few more elephants off to the east of us, but if you are new, welcome, and if you're not and you've just logged in, just to let you know, we did track that young male leopard Kunyuma that James had yesterday evening. Unfortunately, his tracks crossed east out of our Traverse area, but I'm sure he's heading to an area where there's less hyenas. His kill was stolen by hyenas during the night. Bless you, Andrew. And we're now sitting with these Ellies, and Jamie's had a wonderful morning at the hyena den. We're going to move on a little bit and see if we can see the rest of the Ellies. We also are interactive, so you can ask us questions about what we're seeing in the bush, and you can do that by emailing us on questions@wildearth.tv, or you can use the hashtag SafariLive on Twitter. Oh, he's just such a nice big boy. Here he is. He's moved on to the next red thorn. And now the wind's changed. We can actually smell that must smell quite distinctly now. Those of you not sure what must is where an elephant bull is sort of has an influx of hormones, and this is generally when they mate. An elephant will only mate when a male is in must and a female is in estrus. So they can be a little bit unpredictable this time of the year, or when they are in this state. And it's got a very sort of sickly sweet smell, and you can sometimes smell it from quite a long way away. We've just changed position a little bit, so the wind is now blowing towards us, so we can smell the must. And Cindy from Sacramento, as we noticed them pull another branch off that red thorn, is wondering, are elephants more destructive to the trees and bushes during the dry season or the winter months? Most definitely. It's quite an interesting thing, and it's probably it is nature sort of sorting itself out. So what happens is during the summer months, about 80% of an elephant's diet is made up of grass species and only 20% from trees and bushes. During the winter that changes, and about 80% is made up of trees and bushes and only 20% of grass. So it is nature's way of providing a huge animal like an elephant with enough food, but also those summer months give an elephant a chance, or not an elephant, but the trees and the bushes a chance to recover, so they're going to be able to provide food for the elephants again during the dry season. And as you can see, the inside of an elephant's mouth is like an old boot, and you can see those large white thorns that will probably deter quite a few other animals, is just munched and chewed straight down by this big Ellie bull. As we have a look there, the temporal gland is still secreting, and he's secreting from his penile sheath, and that is the sign of must. And Edward on Twitter said he's not really familiar with must, and Edward, well, it's spelled M-U-S-T-H. Oh, there we go. There's the next red thorn being taken apart. They really, really seem to favor these Acacia gerardis, or red thorns, at this time of the year. But so, Edward, back to the must. Edward was like, is it a male version of going on heat? Edward, I could not have described it better myself. That was absolutely spot on. It is exactly that. It is a male version of going on heat. And with elephant must, it's quite interesting. So, depending on the time of the year, because females will come into estrus at different times of the year, but the biggest and most dominant elephant bulls will have their must cycle when the most females are in estrus or on heat, and whereas your younger bulls who are not able to really compete with the big bulls will have their must cycle sort of at the opposite end of the year, and that's while they're sort of developing to try ensure they don't end up fighting with another elephant who's got a ton or two on them. But being a young male elephant can be quite a frustrating thing, as they reach sexual maturity from about 14, but often will never get a chance to mate. They'll only get the first chance to mate probably between 25 and 30 years old. So it can be a little bit frustrating if you're a young male elephant. Oh, there's another elephant back there, but it's also a bull. Maybe this is just a nice big bachelor herd of Ellie. Is that a car coming through? I can't really see. Can you see that through, Andrew? I've got a bit of a branch in my way. I just see that there's an elephant. It looks like a young bull. Might get it is a young bull. Or is it a cow? I can't really make it out. The big bull to our right has sort of turned slightly and noticed that this other is coming. It actually... Hello? I think it's a... Let's see what you guys think. Do you think that is a young bull, or is that a cow? And you can send your answers to questions at WildEarth.tv, or use the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. Now, if we go close in on her head, on the elephant's head, I think I gave it away there. You see it's a very sharp angular head, so it is actually a... bulls have a much rounded head, and obviously physically the bulls are a lot bigger. It's an adult cow. So there is a breeding herd probably in this area, and there possibly is a female who is in must, and that is why this bull is hanging around on the peripheries. I mean, it's a female in estrus. Maybe she's not in full estrus yet, otherwise he might be pursuing her more actively. I was actually hoping that this female might be in estrus the way she was walking in and the way he turned slightly, but unfortunately not. You can hear this little bzz, 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 bzz. There's a little rattling testicular. Note to the left, sorry, Andrew. You can hear him making noise. And the elephant, this elephant cow, oh, there he goes, actually disturbed the little testicular, and it's flown off, unfortunately, from where he was sitting. That very upset sort of bzz, 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 bzz you heard there was a little bird being disturbed by that elephant cow. Well, we noticed that this Ellie bull munching through those red thorns, and it looks like he's on his way to the next red thorn. He's moving from red thorn to red thorn, and this cow is coming up behind us. So Maggie was wondering, watching that elephant absolutely munch through those huge thorns on that red thorn, and then this bull's gone off to the next red thorn. She's wondering, do they have lots of teeth? Well, they actually have an interesting tooth structure. They actually only have almost one big tooth out at one time, but they have 6 sets of teeth over their life, and they come out at different points. Obviously quite a lot quicker when they are young, and as they get older there's longer gaps between the teeth and they're bigger. And one of the reason most elephants expire is because they wear out their last set of teeth, and that normally happens anything around from 55 to sort of 65 years old. So they have a very similar lifespan to humans in that degree. The reason humans, apart from obviously a lot of progress in modern medicine, but one of the... Oh, he's going to chase her. That's my red thorn. One of the reasons that humans, first main reasons that humans were able to extend their lifespan so long was dentistry. And so being able to create new teeth. I know we had a discussion a while ago when we were watching elephants about George Washington and his many sets of teeth. And there was wooden ones, there were lead ones, and all sorts. But being able to sort of chew and digest food for a much longer period is one of the main reasons humans were able to extend their life before a lot of the sort of breakthroughs that we've had in modern medicine. And we could see the vast size difference between 2 adult elephants, a bull and a cow there. Yvonne was just saying how it looked, she looked really big as she sort of walked up towards us, but when you see her close to the bull, she's probably wouldn't say it goes, say, small as half the size, but probably 3/4 of the size of the bull. And probably in weight difference, there's probably at least 2 tons, 2,000 kilograms of weight difference between a big adult bull and an adult cow. Just trying to, it sounds like the rest of those elephants have moved off quite far from us now, into quite a thick area. These two are still here. I'm just going to be on the radio for a second. Jamie. Okay, guys, so we're going to leave these Ellies now, and we're also going to leave you for a little bit. We're going to cross across to Jamie, who's got another member of the Big Five. Actually, she's got 2 members of the Big Five in one sighting. And we'll be back with you a little later.
So guys, from big ellies to some very full bellies, we've got what looks like the Nkuhuma Pride on Arathusa with a buffalo kill. So we do indeed have 2 new members of the Big Five to see today. Unfortunately, one of them is a little bit the worse for the wear, but some very happy feeding lions. And it looks to me like the Nkuhuma Pride. I can count 7 lions that I can see. Oh, excuse me. I am still getting to know the various lions on this reserve, but it would make sense. We did hear about their tracks moving west along Buffelshoek Cut Line, so they might have made their way down here. We are right in a nice big drainage line on Arathusa, quite far north, almost towards the edge of our boundary. The last time we were sitting with a buffalo kill with the Nkuhuma Pride, we discussed at length why it was that the jaw was so often eaten in the beginning. What a lot of the viewers were wondering, because there doesn't seem to be that much meat around there, why it would be that that's one of the first places that the lions start to feed on the carcass. And we have a nice clear sort of indication of my theory, and that is that it's usually the sub-adults, so these young females, which is the one that's feeding in that area at the moment, who aren't strong enough to really get into the best part of the carcass to fight their way in. So they start on the outskirts, and there's still some nice muscly parts of that jaw that are used for the ruminating for the buffalo. So it's a good place to start if you're a young lion and you can't compete with the bigger females for food. You can actually hear them crunching away at the bones.
If they don't get any shots, it doesn't count. Those are all.
And this is a very fresh kill. This probably happened sometime last night. You can see this, they haven't even bothered to move it away from the stomach contents. I'm not sure what that female was digging for, but she's looking for something. So if this is the Nkuhuma Pride, I know that a lot of people are curious to know where Junior is, and I'm sure he's lying off to the side. I can't see him. I'm just going to stick my head around. I can see a tail forming, but that looks like one of the smaller subadult females. And then there is a lion behind the carcass at the back. So when we do have a chance, I will reposition. There are 3 of us here at the sighting, so I can't shift around too much, but once it starts to get a little bit quieter here, then we can loop around and look for Junior. Might be that he's fed already and he's just sleeping off some of the meal. And that lioness is going for one of the big organs. I'm just going to grab my binoculars and have a look at what she's eating. That actually does look like one of the stomachs, and typically lions won't eat any of the stomach contents because it's not very nice, but she's just licking and eating around the skin. I'm not too sure though. Could be one of the other more healthy organs. So the best part for the lions would be the livers, the heart, the kidney of the buffalo. Those are very, very nutritious. So she might be targeting that. But I think the fact that she hasn't paid it much attention means that it's probably one of the bigger stomachs. And she was just sort of licking the blood and the meat from around the lining of the stomach. But the lions won't eat that grassy stomach contents. I think I do see Junior, but it's a very, very poor visual, so when we shift around we'll be able to see him better. But I think he's lying down at the back and to the right of this pride. Just tucked away in the grass there. You can see her tucking right into that carcass, head and shoulders. Charlie, I am probably at this point about 10 meters from the carcass itself and about 7 meters from that closest female to me. She actually chose to lie down there. She was not there when I pulled in. So she is nice and relaxed with our presence. So a lot of people are wondering about Junior's position, and I know Johnny even suggested he's right inside that buffalo carcass. And at this point, Junior, for those of you who might be joining us for the first time, Junior is a 3-year-old or so sub-adult male that is part of this pride. And he's just reaching the age now where he's going to start moving off and becoming independent and looking for his own pride to mate with. But at the moment he is bigger and stronger than all of the females here. So my thoughts is that he's eaten first, he got the lion's share of the meal, and he's just sleeping off a very big belly. I think I can see him. Unfortunately I can only see sort of the rear end, so I'm not too sure. But I think So that is, I think, a junior. I'll have to reposition at some point to be able to see. There is another vehicle making its way in here, so I'm not going to move just yet. But yes, I think that's Junior hiding there behind the grass. And Anna Marie is very, very observant. Well done. That is indeed a woodpecker you can hear. It is fairly close. I'll keep my eye out for it. But it is tapping around somewhere in one of the trees here. So well done. There you can see what I was talking about a little bit earlier about how the jaw often gets fed on first, and that is usually by the younger lions who can't get into the best part of the carcass. And the skin around the nose and the mouth is also good, nice and soft, so it's an easy way of just getting in and feeding.
You asked me if you were going to crawl, then walk, then jog. Now you're running.
And there's some very, very grubby lions.
Going to go to sprinting soon.
That foot covered in the stomach contents of the buffalo. This particular female does look very happy and contented. She's had her full for now. And we were talking about this with the hyenas just a little bit earlier this morning, about the fact that these lions will continue to feed repeatedly for the next 2 or so days, and all of the predators out here have this amazing ability to just consume and consume until you actually can't imagine how they could eat any more. These guys are looking like they were very hungry before they made this kill. This little one approaching does look fairly thin, so good news for this particular lion pride. And there you get the little head rub greeting. These lions definitely needed to feed, so it's great news. And we've seen it a lot over the last few days. Karula, when she was hungry, she finished off an entire steenbok kill in the space of the Sunrise Safari about a week ago. Those hyenas were very, very full, and now we have the predators gorging themselves as well. This little cub looks much happier now. Now it's time to clean off a little bit. So while we've been talking about the hyenas and the lions, Charlie would like to know how close we are to where we were with the hyenas this morning. We're actually very, very far away. I was on my way into Arathusa to see if I could follow up on Tingana and the Anderson male before they called us in. And I have definitely spotted a male lion. I can't see if it's junior or not, but there is a male tucked away in there as well. So we're probably about, maybe 8 kilometers in a straight line, maybe even further from where we saw the hyenas this morning. Oh dear, that's going to be hugely unpleasant. Just to describe the situation to you all, one of the younger lionesses here has decided to defecate right next to the car, and due to the rich nature of what she's just consumed, it is going to be quite pungent. I'm just waiting for that to roll in my direction. Just waiting for the wind to pick up. I'm trying to work out which way it's going to blow. There is quite the odor already. So thank you for that, little lioness. That was less than appreciated. I was actually going to drive around that way. I just want to see where she's gone. Brian, is she still behind you somewhere, or is she just lying down?
Yeah, right behind.
Okay. So just checking out the scene. Keep an eye on her. We wouldn't want to lose Brian. It's amazing to see how comfortable these animals are with the car. What's she up to? She's just lying down.
Lying down.
That one female is... So that one female does appear to be favouring a nig. The one that's just moved into the carcass and is at the front of the cavity. And I think that's probably an injury sustained while she was hunting this buffalo. It's very common for them to hurt themselves. When hunting them, these buffalo are very, very strong and they are fighting for their lives. So it does tend to be quite a dramatic battle, as some of the more regular viewers will know. So there's a good chance she was kicked or hit with a horn in the process of taking down this buffalo. So we'll keep an eye on that. Lions are very, very resilient animals.
Alright.
So guys, the Arethusa guides just making their way out of the sighting. And we do have them to thank for this particular scene. They called us in when I was just entering Arethusa, so that is how we came to hear about it. So we do owe them a big, big thank you. I did come rushing through, and it is, as you can see, a very popular sighting. It's always great for the guests to be able to experience watching a lion pride feeding on a buffalo. The little females just moved out of my way, which is great because I do want to reposition and see if we can get a bit of a better visual on this side. So a big thank you to the Arethusa guides. Do you want to move in there, or are you good? Are you guys okay here? Sure. Just checking to see where the other lioness has gone. Where this one would like to be. I don't reverse into her space. I always think in a sighting it's just respectful to allow the animals to go where they want to go, not get in their way or push them in any way. I mean, that goes without saying that we're here to view them as naturally as possible. I'm going to try and get a little side-on view because these two lionesses are looking full of life and joy, and they will try to play a little bit. Stop now. Is this the female that was limping? No, she looks fine. She's just keeping an eye on what those two sub-adults are doing on that side. And she's decided that that is definitely a good place to be. A little bit of aggression from the two feeding in the same space. And when this buffalo was first killed, there would have been a lot of action around it, especially because these lions do look so hungry. I think there would have been quite a bit of conflict between them when they first started feeding. And I'm sure that Junior got the best part of it. Just listen. If you listen closely, you can hear them growling at each other. It's always amazing to hear the kind of sounds that you get around a lion kill. The crunching of the bones and the growling at each other. At a kill, it's every lion for themselves. So you've got to fight for your position at the kill. So guys, Brent is out and about. Just in case you were wondering what he's up to, he's off the vehicle tracking female leopard. And I've also, on my way up to this sighting, I also picked up on female leopard tracks that I'm sure were shadows. It was very close to where Scott had her yesterday afternoon, so she is around. I will probably be following up from that maybe this afternoon just to see what she's been doing. I do want to, at some point, I will try and ask one of the guides what happened to Tingana and the Anderson male. From what I understand, they crossed west across our boundary, but I just want to double check if there's any updates from their side about that conflict. There's some play fighting going on. Oh, they've stopped now. I would reposition, but I do have a lioness very, very close to me that I don't want to disturb. And the vehicle in front of us has just shifted. They're going to, in some point soon, they will be pulling out, and then we can actually loop around and see the lion I think is Junior. So, all that we can see of him at the moment is just a foot sticking out. He's not where I thought he was originally. I think he's just behind the buffalo head, through that gap there. And all you can see at the moment is a leg, but he is around, and I'm sure he's had his fill already for now. So while we were with those thieving hyenas this morning who stole Kunyuma's kill, we were talking a little bit about the distance that the hyenas will go from the den in order to find food and claim food. And Charlie would like to know if those hyenas would move the quite large distance between where we are now and where we were this morning to where we are now to try and steal this kill. And the answer is possibly not necessarily, but bear in mind that there will be other hyenas in the area. So there might be a couple of resident males, there might even be another clan in this area that we don't know about that might be moving around. So there's a good chance that if it's not the hyenas that we see every day, there's lots and lots of tracks. I saw fresh tracks while I was driving to the sighting. So there are hyenas in this area, just not necessarily the ones that we've been seeing regularly at the den. So now I'm going to try and have a look and see if we can get Junior. My original approach has been blocked quite effectively by this lioness who's lying right next to us. So I can't go the way I was going to. But I'm sure he's tucked away in there. I was originally going to go round that way. But as you can see, she's quite happy there, and I'm definitely not going to disturb her. So let's try and poke our head round here. There's a lot of very full, very contented lions scattered everywhere around us at the moment. Lovely girl. You can see how the ridges on her spine are sticking up and her hip bones are sticking out. So these lions were very, very hungry. They were fairly desperate to make a kill. You can see how very comfortable she was with our presence. She wasn't bothered about us at all. She moved right in front of the car. But this is good news for this pride, because they are looking as though they've struggled for possibly even close to a week in terms of making a kill. So I'm happy for them. It's unfortunate for the buffalo, but it is very, very good news for these guys. But now that she's moved, ooh, chasing. High spirits. The little sub-adults are having a great time. Happy now that they've been fed and just putting a little bit of those hunting instincts into practice. Very sweet. Okay, so I'm going to, now that the lioness has moved away from the area, I can actually make my way around and try and get us a nice visual of Junior. But to do so, I have to navigate around the rather runny scat that is in the sand, which I really don't want to drive through, because that smell will follow us around for the next 3 weeks. And I'm pretty sure at that point I will be the only presenter driving Wendy, because nobody else will want to.
No cameraman either.
No, Brian says no cameraman either. So it will just be me on my own in Wendy. It's very, very thick sand. I'm just actually going to... Before I go to Junior, these lionesses, these two sub-adults are being very playful. I'm just going to see if we can get a nice shot of them playing. And Maggie's pointed out that there's lots of meat on this carcass still, and you are absolutely right. There is plenty of food still for these lionesses and Junior, so they'll have time to get back into good condition. And look how playful and happy these two are. That's adorable. Let's try and stay with them for a second. Just want to stop and see if they play some more. So this lion pride is going to be here probably for at least the next 2 days, finishing off what's left of this carcass. They've got plenty of meat still, so they are going to be hanging around. But these, you can see how incredibly happy and playful these lionesses are feeling now that they've eaten. So really, really awesome news for the Nkahuma pride. And they are at the age now, these two, that they will start to really initiate hunts. So they're starting to learn that instinct is really kicking in. And in the next few months, what we'll start to see is they start to practice their hunting abilities more regularly. They've probably, I'm thinking about in the next 6 months or so, they're going to be really active participants in what's going on and learning from the other females in the pride. But they are moving off, and I do know that you guys are really, really keen to see Junior and what he's up to. So let's try and reposition. They're still playing ahead of us. Okay, let's try stay with them for a little bit. They're keeping me on my toes, these two. Don't worry, Junior's not going anywhere. These two are having a fantastic time. So Jim saw a little bit earlier how close that lioness came, and he was wondering if I've ever had one jump up on the car and if I would even let that happen. And the answer is absolutely not. That is not a habit that we want them to get into, and not one that you see in lions. It has been. There are occasional circumstances where the lions are very habituated, possibly even hand raised, where they have been known to exhibit that kind of behavior. But no, there is no way on earth I would allow it to happen. It's very, very dangerous. These are wild animals, and they are unpredictable as well. So no, I would not be letting a lion jump on my car. You do get cases where lions are in very, very poor condition, hungry, injured in some way, or very old, and you start to see that possibility of them. But it is hugely, hugely unlikely. They are wild animals, and they are scared of us. They are more scared of us than we are of them, especially during the day. So if a lion even started to exhibit signs of jumping on my car, we'd be moving out as quickly as possible, and possibly even showing a little bit of an aggressive response to them, just to teach them, because they're not stupid, just to teach them that that kind of behavior is not acceptable. So these two are just exploring the outskirts of this area, and it does get... I don't want to move too far away from the pride. I want to see if they are still going to play with each other. It does look like it. Sorry, Brian, I know this is going to be an awkward angle, but it's going to... Didn't want to get too close and interrupt that particular play moment. Just each one moves ahead a little bit and then crouches down low and waits to pounce on her sister. So very, very sweet. I think what I'm going to do is try and get up onto this bank. So that we can watch them slightly higher. definitely in high spirits today. I don't think they're done yet. I think they're just stopping for a rest. They are having a wonderful time. Are we on the line to the right? Or both? Let's try and stay with them a little bit longer. And see what we can, if we can get them moving through. So we've got these two older cubs. Ooh, very thick sand here. Just want to make sure we don't get stuck. We might have a slight problem. But it's okay, they're coming back to us. They've decided to come back to us, which is great because I'm not going to be moving just yet. So we'll sit and watch these two for a moment. And then we might have to get a little bit more aggressive in our style of driving here. And in my haste to follow these two, I made a slightly rookie error and entered into the sand track without having straightened my wheels properly. So when you're going through sand, you don't want to have too much turning happening. Hello, little girl. So, these two are going to move off. I am probably not going to be moving after them at any rapid pace. So I'm going to send you back across to Brent, and I'll be back with you, hopefully when I'm not still dug into the sand.
Welcome back, everyone. We've bumped into two strange, very get a quick update from James and Scott to see what they've been up to.
Hello.
Hello, everyone.
We found nothing. At all. Nothing.
We did follow tracks that Brent found for us, but unsuccessfully. And then,
Well, not a mammal, in fact. One
No.
impala
yes,
and a steenbok.
Okay. Well, thanks very much, guys. We're going to keep on, and I'm sure they're going to keep checking this area where there have been some leopard tracks, and hopefully between one of us, we're going to actually find one this morning. But always great. It's always great to have the other guys out with us. It makes such a big difference knowing you've got guys you trust out on tracks giving you a hand, and it's all to ensure that you guys get the best possible safari. So we're going to let them continue on, and we're going to do the same. Cheers, guys.
There's still time. There's still hope.
There's still hope, exactly.
See you later. Good luck.
So what'll happen quite often, like we've done quite a lot with tracks today, is that because obviously with James and Scott not being live or going live at any time, if we do find tracks, we'll try to follow them for as long as possible. But if we have to sort of loop around, we can leave James and Scott on foot, and they can walk for 20 minutes, half an hour through the bush, and we can loop around to the other side to see if those tracks come out. And unfortunately, that's what happened to those tracks we're following this morning, where they went into the bush. We left James and Scott there, and Andrew and I went around, and that's where we found them coming out the other side of a big block, and unfortunately heading across to the east. But as there are many leopards that must go out, must come in. So we're quite confident there's still some leopards on the property. We just got to find them. And it sounds like you guys have been having a wonderful time with Jamie and the Nkahumas. It seems like winter is the time for buffalo and the Nkahuma pride. So we're going to do one more loop around this little area, see if we find any more tracks. Other than that, we'll just see what we can see. Hopefully we can find some nice general game, getting a bit warmer, so that animals like wildebeest and zebra and impala will start getting a little bit more mobile, and if we're lucky, even a giraffe. So the wind started to pick up a little bit. It is quite a bit warmer, but still definitely a nip in the air. So there is a possibility that leopards might still be moving. It is still quite cool. As you can see, we'll stop now and show you here. You can see the wind is starting to pick up a little bit. You see in the quarry bushes ahead of us. And you can actually hear the rustle of the leaves. And you might have noticed that we've been driving around and it's been quite sort of dry and desolate. In this spot we've got quite a lot of greenery all around us. We're right on the edge of the little drainage line that runs through Philemon's Dip. No water in it at the moment, but obviously the underground water is still here, and that's what's enabling a lot of these evergreen trees and other trees to retain their sort of green leaves throughout the dry season. So, as we can see, as we leave this drainage line, you can see we get to a much more sort of stark vista around us, a lot more dry. And Amanda from Alabama is wondering, well, once the rains start, how long will it take for the bush to start greening? I mean, you will see almost immediate effects, not hugely visible, but in the little bit of grass, you'll start seeing that greenery. You'll start seeing a lot of your annual flowers and sort of tiny little succulents, no, not so much the succulents, but the herbs and sedges and stuff like that will start greening almost immediately within sort of 12 hours of the rain. But it all depends on how much rain. It can take a couple of weeks, but it is much faster than you think it would be. The bush changes incredibly, and with that we get the arrival of our sort of summer migrants. Woodlands kingfishers will appear, and that's sort of one of the first signs that spring is truly sprung and the weather is going to start changing and we're going to get a lot green. Also, obviously, it'll become a lot warmer, and we're going to have a lot more insects. So amazing how the bush changes through the year and how it looks after itself, like we were speaking about a bit earlier. The fact that the elephants are now feeding a lot off the trees and bushes, and then as soon as the rain comes and the new grass shoots come, they'll start feeding off the grass. Birds like drongos won't be so reliant on following animals to try and find the very few insects that are around that are being disturbed, because there'll be a lot more insects around just from the rain and the heat and the flowers. So there'll be bees and a lot more wasps and other little insects that pollinate different flowers and trees. So it is a complete sort of metamorphosis. So there are female leopard tracks in this area. James and Scott are busy checking that side, and we've checked the western side. So I'm just going to have a quick look here on the northern edge. It is possible, because apparently there was some audio of hyenas maybe chasing a leopard, that it might have run further than where we think it might have. So we're just sort of widening our search a little bit. Got some raptors up there. I'm just going to try and move quickly. Grab my binoculars. There we go. I'm just going to swing the camera up now. I think I know what they are already, but I am not going to take a guess till I've had the binos out. So we see there's a very distinct shape in the wing there. So I'm wondering who's going to be able to tell me what they are. And they are quite far away, but we're looking at that very distinctive shape in the wing. And you can send your answers to questions at wildearth.tv via email, or use the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. What raptors are those? Three of them flying, and you can see at the moment they're sort of just cruising, and here we go, perfect little bit of flapping. I was about to mention. And that takes a lot of energy, flapping. So what those birds are doing is looking for those thermals. Those big warm air rising. So as it gets later in the day and it heats up, you get these incredible thermals. So basically circular sort of wind tunnels of warm air coming off the ground and going up into the sky. And at the moment you see those birds, they are just sort of cruising, and they're actually dropping altitude, and he has to flap a little bit to try and get up again, and they're searching for those thermals. So let's see who can figure out which birds those were. When looking at birds, and especially looking at birds at a vast distance like that, I mean, even through binoculars, you're not going to be able to see many sort of very sort of finite details or distinguishing features. So a lot of birders, or what you say, you look for the general size, or so you look at the size, or so you look at the general sort of size, shape, and impression. And that sort of puts you normally in the right family, and then from there you can try to sort of work out from the specifics which bird it could be. So we're going to be on the edge of this drainage line, and there was quite a lot of sort of ongoings here earlier in the morning. So I'm just going to sit up on the drainage line, and there was quite a lot of sort of ongoings here earlier in the morning. So I'm just going to sit up on my door for a little bit so I can see into the drainage line, get a little bit of height, and hopefully you might may be able to spot something there. The nice thing is if you put these vehicles in the right gear, I don't even have to use my legs. I can even put them up on the dash while I'm driving, but it's not necessary but uncomfortable. But if you put it in the right gear, it can just idle along, and it gives me a chance to concentrate on looking for the animals. So, speaking of birds, earlier in the Sunrise Safari, I mentioned that while I was on my travels in northern Zambia, I saw a new bird species for me, which was Margaret's Battis. While I was on my travels in northern Zambia, I saw a new bird species for me, which was Margaret's Battis, which is endemic to sort of southern Congo, northern Zambia, and I think possibly eastern Angola. And Raisa, who's a very keen birder who joins us on a lot of our safaris, would like to know now how many bird species have I reached to? Well, Risa, I'm not exactly sure. I haven't done sort of the add up and count for quite a while, but I'm probably out of I think there's about 2,400 possible species in Africa, and one must remember that's also including a lot of vagrants that sort of get very lost, swept off by a hurricane, and arrive sort of unannounced. But I'm probably out of it. I think there's about 2,400 possible species in Africa, and one must remember that's also including a lot of vagrants that sort of get very lost, swept off by a hurricane, and arrive sort of unannounced. And not seen again for 20 years. But in total, I'm probably sitting around 1,600 bird species for Africa. I've been very lucky, and I've been able to work and travel in a lot of places that a lot of people don't get the opportunities to go to, like the Central African rainforest, and not just going for a week or two. I actually spent a year living there, so I have been able to pick up a lot of species that are not easy to see, and for me, I know bird watching can be quite a competitive thing, and there's a lot of what the sort of termed, I think the term is twitches, and like a lot of things, everyone does it for a different reason. When I was younger, I do have quite a competitive streak. So when I was younger, I was very much, gotta take the species. I've got to sort of calm down a little bit in my old age. And now it's more about going out there and actually just spending time in these areas. And if you get to see new bird species, it's a bonus. So I haven't sort of done the tick and counted all the species for quite a long time. But still, maybe I should. And it's probably about time I actually stop being a Luddite and get a digital version going. I think my old bird list is a handwritten thing on a piece of paper stuck in one of my old bird books somewhere. Unfortunately, no sign of tracks or anything in that drainage line, so I'm going to hop down to the normal driving position, and we're going to keep going around this area, and hopefully we do find tracks shortly. So we've had our first answers in. Unfortunately, they were incorrect. Some people are saying Basileia. They were not Basileia. So keep guessing, guys. So well done to Debbie, who here says vulture. Now, Debbie, which vulture? That is the question. So it is a vulture. Well done to Debbie for getting into the right family. Now we're going to go see if we can get the exact vulture. And remember, those of you who might have missed, if you want to send in your answers and get involved in the IDing of the animals we seeing out here, you can send it by email to questions@wildearth.tv. Or you can use the hashtag Safari Live if you're on Twitter. So, unfortunately, no tracks yet. I'm still convinced certain of the leopards in this area possess magical wings that allows them to fly over roads, so I'm going to check a little bit wider still. So, while we continue to scour this area, we're going to cross back to Jamie, who's with the lions. And guys, keep thinking about those vultures. Maybe they'll arrive at that buffalo kill and give you a better chance of being able to identify them. So we'll be back with you a little later. So have fun with Jamie and Inkahumas.
So guys, welcome back. And guess who we have here? As you can see, Junior has definitely eaten and is now lying very content and full at the back. And obviously, as you guessed, we did make it out of our tricky sandy situation fairly quickly and fairly successfully, with lots of digging efforts from Brian and myself, and a little bit of pushing from Brian at the back as well. So we were out and about. Unfortunately, I think I'm going to need to go and get the car stuck again, because on my way back I was so busy thinking about not getting stuck again that I forgot about that lion diarrhea that was in the sand, and it's now all over my back left wheel. So if you see me out and about with no cameraman and the only person driving on Wendy, that is why. That smell is going to be with us for quite some time to come. It's not even summer, so I can't even drive through the nice mud puddles and wash it off that way. But all in all, a hugely successful morning, because at least we get to see this Nkahuma Pride looking nice and happy and well fed. And the woodpecker is still merrily sort of tapping away. So a good breakfast for the lions and the woodpecker. So as we mentioned earlier, these guys will probably be here for the next 2 or so days, just feeding on this carcass. We're going to start to see the vultures moving in when they discover it. It is a nice open area, so they should be here fairly soon. But of course they won't be able to come down and feed until these lions decide to leave. And as I mentioned earlier, they are looking quite, or they looked like they were being quite thin before they caught this buffalo. So they're definitely going to be making the most of this kill. Still going. Obviously found a good tree for insect catching. And Junior is doing what Junior does best. So the fact that Junior is here and the rest of the lionesses are still alternating between feeding tells us a lot about what happened when this buffalo was first killed. He probably got straight in there and got all of the best parts of it, possibly some of those really tasty organs that carry such high nutritional value. And the females, especially the young too, were probably sort of pushed out into the outskirts to feed. So there's lots of these little tiny flying midges. I'm not actually sure what their official name is, but that's the little white dots that you see. And they're all about at this time of year, but they will be attracted in particular. They are tiny, tiny little flies. One of them just landed in front of me but has since disappeared. So they are found all over the place, but they are particularly attracted to the smell of this kill and to the lions. So guys, these guys aren't up to much, so I'm going to send you back across to Brent, who has quite a cool jackal to show you, and I will be back with you in just a few moments.
Guys, I've just seen a first for me since I've been at Safari Live, and there he goes there. I know we've seen quite a few side-striped jackals since we've been here, but this is the first black-backed jackal I've seen since I've been at Safari Live. And we've had quite a lot of discussions about why they're not around and whatnot. And there's been no real answer. There have been, and people said in the past there used to be quite a lot of black-backed jackal around. But so there we go, a black-backed jackal. So you see, he's a little bit nervous, jogging. So we're not going to try go too close to him, but we definitely are going to try get another view. Make sure I don't reverse into a tree. I think he's going to move out into the open again. And so the old viewers have told me that you guys used to see quite a lot of black-backed jackal on the live drives. But since I've been here, we've only seen side-striped jackal. And it's very difficult for me to guess why we haven't seen them before. I mean, where I used to work in the southern sands, we used to see very few side-striped and lots of black-back. Maybe it just goes in phases. They can be quite territorial. So if you have a pair, they will stay in a certain area and you will see them quite often. So this could be exciting. Maybe we're going to have a pair of black-backed jackal that decide to move on to Djuma. That would be wonderful. They have one of the best calls in the bush for me. Very difficult to try and emulate, but I will give it a go. You can hear the lapwings unhappy. Like the side stripe, is very much an opportunist. He will try, if there's eggs or a baby lying down, or a baby lapwing around, he'll definitely try feed off it or eat it. They are far more carnivorous than the side-striped jackal. Side-striped jackal are well known for eating a lot of fruit and insects and far more of an omnivore. Now, for those of you not sure what an omnivore means, an omnivore is something like us that will eat vegetable matter and meat and has a very varied diet. So the black-backed jackal is far more carnivorous in his diet, so definitely scavenges a lot more and hunts a lot more, sort of feeding off red meat, where there is the side-striped jackal will take opportunities to feed off almost anything. And certain areas, up to 70% of their diet can even be fruit. So really interesting and really, really exciting that we've got another jackal species. So this is a definite first for me since I've been here. So he's lying down. He's relaxed a little bit now, that we haven't sort of put too much pressure on him. How's that there, Andrew? So looking at this black-backed jackal, and I know a lot of you guys out there not only watch the live drives, but you keep a very close look on all the different waterhole cameras. And Anna Marie's just noticed that she says, wow, we normally only see these at Pete's Pond. Pete's Pond is actually in Botswana in a reserve called Mashatu. So quite a long way from here, but really, really fantastic to be able to see another species. They're incredibly fast, and I mean, I've seen them nip into buffalo kills and grab pieces of meat literally from under a lion's nose. So they are quite specialist scavengers. That's not to say they won't hunt for themselves. So we can see very distinct difference. You can see he's got a very distinct black back, but the main noticeable difference, especially when they're jogging and moving like that, is the tail. The side-striped jackal has a very white tip to the tail. Also, if you look at the bottom of the body, quite an orange or sort of reddish color, whereas the side-striped jackal is almost sort of gray. Unfortunately, I don't have my big book with me, but I will remember to show you the differences on the sunset safari. So even a little predator like this will be a little bit nervous with this wind.
One of the sub-adult's just going up to join the female there. Sharing the meal. I'm just going to have to reposition slightly, I think, just to make room for another vehicle to come and view them. Oh no, I think we should be fine. I did warn the guide about the same problem that I had, and to avoid that pile of scat that is in the sand, so hopefully he has done so. I was so close to missing it as well. I just caught the edge of it. A little bit of growling there. The female just letting the sub-adult know that she mustn't get in her way. And if you are just joining us, there was a female that was limping a little bit around. I'm not sure which one it was, so we'll be keeping an eye on that over the next few days. Probably just an injury or a pulled muscle or a pulled ligament that she might have got while she was taking down this buffalo. So over the next 2 days, these lions are going to feed like this repeatedly. Ooh. Quieten down a bit. So they'll be feeding repeatedly on this carcass and then moving to a water source to have a drink, especially because they'll be feeding on such a salty meal. And there's a couple of water sources around us. Diane would like to know how far we are from the Arethusa waterhole. And for those of you who might be new to Wild Earth, there is a 24-hour live webcam up at the Arethusa waterhole, so you can watch the goings on there. And we're probably, I think, maybe about 1.5 kilometers in a straight line. I'm not entirely sure because many of you know I never quite know where I am in Arethusa at any one point in time, unless I am at the dam, in which case I know exactly where I am. So I think we're about 1.5 kilometers away. We're kind of between two water sources because we are fairly close to Red Dam as well, which is maybe a little bit closer than the Arethusa Dam is to this kill. So they might pop up to Red Dam, although it is starting to look very empty and drying up quite a bit. Or they could go down to Arethusa waterhole. So they're going to be up and down for the next 2 days. And usually 1 or 2 will go and drink at a time, the rest will stay with the carcass. So, great news for the Nkuhuma Pride, who have been desperately hunting for quite a few days now. So I'm really, really happy to see that they've managed to get a kill. And we've actually, sort of behind the scenes yesterday afternoon, we went out tracking and looking for them. And they must have passed just along the top of Vuyatela and then come on to Arethusa. So I'm thrilled to have them, and of course we have the Arethusa guides to thank for this sighting. It is great to be with them and to see that they're going to be well fed and looked after, especially to see those sub-adults so playful and happy after their meal. So all of the Nkuhumas, as far as I can tell, present and accounted for. We're missing one at the moment, but I did count 8 at one point, so they are all here. And a fantastic way to start and end the sunrise safari. I had a great time with the hyenas this morning, and as always, a big thank you to Brian for his fantastic camera work. It has been a great time. He's had a lot of difficult animals running around and playing and dashing all over the place. So thank you guys for joining us on the Sunrise Safari. This afternoon we will be back here with the Nkuhuma Pride and then maybe go and look for Shadow. So as I will say a big goodbye to you all and a big thank you, and I will leave you with this wonderful sight of the Nkuhumas feeding on their buffalo kill. Goodbye everyone, I will see you this afternoon.
Welcome back, everyone. As you can see, we just stopped with a nice little harem of zebra, and you can see quite a few different ages in there. Out on this nice short open area. Some of them were lying down, warming up from the cold morning. I'm sure they'll start moving now towards some water for a drink and some different areas to feed. But what a fantastic first day back. I thoroughly enjoyed being out and having you guys on safari with me again, and absolutely fantastic, and as always really exciting to be able to see a new species for me since it's Safari Live, and for our new viewers, I'm sure that might have been a new species for you guys as well since you've been here. But very great, and I did promise you I was going to do a jackal call, but I'll do that a little bit later. Whoa, wind is picking up, so it looks like it's going to be another windy day. So this sunset safari looks like we will probably have a lot of wind. And it is really fascinating that we had that single little black-backed jackal by itself. Looked like a younger animal. It's possibly dispersed from its natal area, and from its parents would have chased it away as it got a bit older, and it's probably moved into this area trying to establish a new territory. So really great, and not unusual for it to be alone while it's dispersing. Obviously it'll hope to find another dispersal, female or male, and form a little pair. So fingers crossed that they decide to set up home on a sandy patch. That will be wonderful, that we'll have both jackal species around, since we've only had side stripe for the last couple of months. But thanks very much for everyone who's joined us. To the new viewers, always great to have new people. We really love taking you guys on safari and showing you what's out here. To our old viewers, always wonderful to have you with us. And thanks again for all the questions. We really do appreciate them, and we love being able to share our passion and our knowledge for the African bush with you. So we're going to say goodbye. It's been a wonderful sunrise safari. Amazing lions and hyenas with Jamie, and we've fiddled around tracking some leopards and another little carnivore in the black-backed jackal. So for the last few seconds of drive, we'll let you look at those zebras, but before that I have to do my jackal imitation. It's probably not the best. I recommend you go online and see if you can find an audio clip. It's probably far better than my version's going to be, but I'll give it a go anyway. Here we go. Definitely not the best jackal impression that's ever been done. I'm sure there's a few people out there who can do it better, but definitely one of the quintessential sounds of the African bushveld. So I would really recommend going online and seeing if you can download or even listen to a clip of that. So goodbye until the sunset safari. Jamie and I will see you later, but enjoy the zebras for the last few seconds of drive.